Hello, I hope you are all enjoying an excellent ICER conference. I am Geoffrey Herman, a teaching associate professor in computer science at the University of Illinois. I am presenting on behalf of my co-authors about our work comparing grade replacement and weighted averages for second chance exams. This work has been supported by funding from the National Science Foundation. So, why second chance exams? When we think about improving teaching and learning, we tend to focus on changing pedagogies to things like active learning and not on how we assess student learning. Yet, how we assess students or how we encourage them to study is equally important. Exams are common but laborious. Writing, proctoring, and grading all take considerable time and energy, and the amount of work for giving exams grows with class size. Consequently, most faculty frequently give only a few big exams each semester. Unfortunately, the practice of giving only a few big exams encourages cramming, which in turn leads students to binging and purging on that knowledge for those exams. One of the strongest findings from cognitive science is that spending the same amount of time studying over many smaller study sessions is more effective and more efficient than cramming. Similarly, taking practice tests is far more effective than rereading material or re-watching video lectures, especially for long-term retention of knowledge. Together, these two findings describe a phenomenon called test-potentiated learning. Testing our knowledge about a topic accelerates future learning. So the question is, how do we take advantage of this theory in the way we give exams? Consider a stereotypical course that administers 2 midterms and a final. Under this testing regime, a high-performing student simply takes each test, demonstrates their mastery, and moves on to future learning. A low-performing student, in contrast, may struggle with early material, which in turn means they are not ready to learn later material, making it more likely that they fail to master that later material. Mastery learning asks, what if we required struggling students to progress only after they have demonstrated mastery of the topic? Hopefully, all students would master the material now, but it may just take low-performing students longer to complete a course. The problem is that mastery learning places a heavy burden on instructors to tailor the speed of the course to each individual student and create as many ad hoc examinations as are needed to help students. Similarly, students may not be able to complete courses within the normal constraints of a term, which also may not be feasible. We propose second chance testing as a way to split the difference, gaining many of the mastery benefits of mastery learning at a lower cost. In this paradigm, a struggling student will have a second opportunity to master the material after each examination, hopefully preparing them better for future learning. Several of my co-authors each independently began experimenting with second chance testing and had varying experiences. We found informally that the course policies surrounding second chance testing had a significant impact on whether students chose to take second chance exams and whether they found them beneficial. Make the stakes for taking extra exams too low by fully replacing first chance exams, and students procrastinate. They skipped the first chance exam and they delayed their studying. This negates the value of test-potentiated learning. With no penalty for students to take second chance exams, on the other hand, students took frivolous second chance exams. For example, this blew our minds when we realized that students who had earned perfect scores, not just a few of them, but most of them, were taking second chance exams, wasting course resources for proctoring and grading. In contrast, if you make second chance exams too high stakes, exams become too stressful and can create equity issues for students who have more competing demands on their time. So we conducted a quasi-experimental study to compare the effects of two policies in one course, my computer architecture course, more rigorously. The 90 cap policy capped students' scores if they took a second chance exam at 90%, meaning that if students wanted a perfect score, they had to obtain it on the first attempt, creating an incentive for students to study for both attempts. This policy also used a full replacement policy where a bad grade on the first chance exam would be completely overwritten or lost. The 90-10 policy, in contrast, took a weighted average of both exam attempts if a student took both exams. This policy, again, was trying to encourage students to take both attempts seriously by having both factor into the final grade calculation, but hopefully not make the policy too stressful because the lower performing score would not be weighted too heavily. Starting in the 4th week of the course, the computer architecture course has bi-weekly exams with second chance exams offered in the in-between weeks. So exam 1.1 is exam 1 first chance, and exam 1.2 is exam 1 second chance, and so forth. The course teaches around 300 students each term. For this study, we compared student test-taking behaviors and learning from fall 18, spring 19, and fall 19. We had historically used the 90 cap policy, so that was our control group. In fall 19, we switched to the 90-10 policy as our treatment group. We collected data for these terms because we kept the exams and pedagogy for these semesters consistent, with the exception of exam 6, which we will exclude from future analyses. Using exam 1 performance as a baseline measurement, we found no significant differences between the student population, so we continued with the study. So, what did we find? Research question 1. Does exam policy change who takes second chance exams? To answer this question, we binned students according to the grade letter that they received on their first chance exam. We then measured what fraction of students for each bin took the second chance exam. Using logistic regressions, we found that students were significantly more likely to take second chance exams if they had earned an A or B on the first chance exam. Regardless of which course policy was used, 10 to 20% of students who earned Ds or Fs chose not to take second chance exams. This finding suggests that the 90-10 policy primarily encourages students with borderline mastery to take second chance exams. Research question 2. Does exam policy affect how students study? Using our learning management system, we tracked how many practice exams and homework submissions students made on the assignments related to the exam content. It is common knowledge in my course that the structure of the exams matches the practice exams exactly, and that some exam questions are pulled from the same pool as the homework assignments. This first highlighted panel represents the exam dates for the first chance exam, and the second highlighted panel represents the exam dates for the second chance exam. As you can see, there is a nearly identical spike in studying during the exam windows, suggesting that students did not change their study habits in aggregate, and that they probably procrastinate. Research question 3. Does exam policy affect student learning? For the first half of the semester, we continue to see no significant differences in student learning. However, students in the 90-10 policy perform significantly better than the 90 cap students for the rest of the semester. This finding held whether we calculated performance as students' best score on either a first or second chance exam, or whether we used only their first chance exam score. While the effect sizes of improved learning are small, the cost of implementing the policy change was negligible for both students and faculty. So, what does this mean? In student attitude surveys, students reported that they preferred the 90-10 policy because it was less stressful and more fair. For instructors who are planning to use second chance testing, then we encourage those faculty to consider using a weighted average policy rather than a grade replacement policy. The 90-10 policy seemed to primarily encourage those students who possessed borderline mastery of material to restudy the material and try again. By increasing their mastery of early material, we believe that these students were better prepared to learn later course content. These findings suggest that we need more research on how we can maximally improve our limited assessment resources to maximize student outcomes.